Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showcasing some battles I did in the Open Great League with Salazzle. This is actually my first time using this Pokemon, and I must say it performs really well now, especially after Incinerate got buffed. It does so much damage. The attack stat on this thing is insane. And I got one from trading. I traded a friend from my local community for this female Salandit. As you know, you need a female Salandit in order to evolve the Salazzle, and they're kind of rare. They're actually pretty rare. I haven't been able to hatch a female myself, which is why I had to trade for one. So the IVs on it are really bad. But as a legitimate player, you learn that you just get what you get and you don't get upset. And I'm just happy to have one, honestly. I know a lot of people won't have access to it, but it is really good. If you're able to get one, I highly recommend it. The team I am going to be running with it is going to be Shadow Swampert lead with Salazzle and Talonflame in the back. Talonflame is going to be the safe swap usually, and I use it to draw out the Basties and the Carbinks. I know it's not that great, but, you know, I gotta draw out the rock type in order for my backline to work. I was running this team at first with Whiscash lead, but I found that Swampert is better at dealing with opposing Swamperts and dealing with opposing Whiscash and Quagsire. And then I'm also running Sludge Wave on the Swampert for Azumarill, which this team is also kind of weak to. I highly recommend this team if you want to finish your battles fast, that's for sure. I was finishing my matches so fast, and I actually went positive for several sets with this team. With that being said, let's get into these battles. Alrighty, up first we are going to be seeing a Whiscash lead. This is exactly where we want to see it. We want the Swampert aligned to the Whiscash. I'm going to go straight for the Hydro Cannons, and hopefully one can land. And we do land one, that's good. We've taken out most of the Whiscash's health. But I do go ahead and shield here. I actually don't think I needed to shield now watching this in hindsight. I'm going to go for another Hydro Cannon, hopefully taking out the Whiscash, but they do invest a shield themselves. I'm going to go ahead and outpace to the next Hydro Cannon, and they invest both of their shields to save their Whiscash. This is really good for us because with shields down, the Salazzle in the back is absolutely going to dominate. I did go ahead and swap into my Talonflame because it looked like the Whiscash could farm down my Swampert there, and Whiscash with energy for my backline is very bad. So I swapped into Talonflame, shielded the Scald, and then my opponent swapped into a Wigglytuff, and it looks like their entire backline is going to be weak to fire. They had a Wigglytuff and a Skarmory in the back. But moving on to the next game, we are going to see an amazing lead of Talonflame into our Swampert. Now my opponent swaps into a Vigoroth, and here's the thing. This Vigoroth now has access to Rock Slide after the move update, so I can't really swap into one of my back Pokemon, but I was able to land a Hydro Cannon, which means now I can bring in one of my back Pokemon and Incinerate down. For some reason, I chose to bring in Salazzle. This is actually okay, because I saw that the Talonflame was on the lead. I expected them to bring back in Talonflame, and Salazzle actually has a very good matchup against Talonflame because it is going to outpace to those Poison Fangs. So my opponent did invest their final shield into their Talonflame. I did go ahead and let my Salazzle go because I can see that I can win this with my own Talonflame. I'm not expecting them to have a better answer to fire types because otherwise they would have brought it in for my Salazzle. Gonna make a catch on our very low HP Swampert in the back. We managed to catch the Flame Charge to save our final shield, and then my opponent, top left. Unfortunately, we don't get to see what they have in the back. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next match, we are going to be seeing an Azumarill lead, and this is exactly why I'm running Sludge Wave. Hopefully they let the move go. I am not going to bait because I expect them to be expecting Earthquake, and they might not shield it. They don't shield it, and we get the Azumarill into the red. That's really good for us. I'm going to go ahead and save my Swampert because I haven't drawn out a rock type yet. So going to go for the Hydro Cannon, and we take out the Azumarill. Going to swap immediately into one of my back Pokemon. They bring in Trevenant, and then after I swap Salazzle, they bring in their Sableye. They no-shield the Poison Fang because it is resisted, but I am okay with letting my Salazzle go now because the Sableye is very low and I can incinerate it down with my Talonflame. I'm gonna save my final shield for the Talonflame because a Shadow Ball is going to be able to take me out. I'm gonna shield this regardless of whatever move this is gonna be because I know that my opponent can't reach another move, and we take that win. Moving on to the next game, we are going to be seeing a Quagsire lead. This lead is very tricky. I do not want this lead to see my backline. And it is Shadow as well, so it's going to be doing more damage to my Swampert, unfortunately. We do manage to land a Hydro Cannon, however, this is good. If I could get it into the red, then I will be able to CMP tie on the next Hydro Cannon, win CMP, and we manage to take a shield from my opponent. Now, because this Quagsire is running Mudshot, I'm going to be able to incinerate it down with my Talonflame. The Mudshots are resisted, and then my opponent brings in their own Talonflame. This is looking good. It means they don't have a better answer to fire types in the back. Their fire type answer was their lead, basically. And because we were able to take that out, we were able to take this win. My opponent top lefts, unfortunately, it looks like they might have been running that double flyer backline. Maybe a Skarmory in the back, which would have been weak to fire types. I do have to say, if you use a Swampert to take out a water type in the lead, then it's kind of difficult if they have a rock type in the back. This team also struggles a lot against dragon types, unfortunately. I just top left against dragon types. On to the next game, we see an Umbreon lead. I'm going to stay in here a little bit and chip the Umbreon before I swap into my safe swap, which is the Talonflame. They chip us with a Foul Play, and then they swap into Defense Deoxys. This is going to be tricky if it has Rock Slide. It looks like it is running Thunderbolt because they did 8. I'm still going to shield either way because this still takes the Talonflame out. And I am buffing myself, so I'm going to be able to do a lot of damage with these Incinerates. So it didn't make sense for them to shield there because I'd just be able to incinerate them down. Now they bring back in the Umbreon, and they are going to be able to outpace us to a move and take us out with Foul Play. And then, hello, Algorithm. We are up against a Hypno, and I have a Poison type in the back. A very squishy Poison type, by the way. So, GG's, this is basically game over for us. Yep, props to my opponent for running Hypno. But even with this loss, we still managed to go positive in this set. We get 3 wins out of 5, which is really good, especially when you're running a full team of squishies. But we're managing to make it work, and that's what matters. Also, I'm running a very squishy team because I don't have time to run a tanky team right now. Anyways, moving on to the next match, we're going to be seeing a Lanturn lead. We need to keep this Lanturn on the lead and try to take it out with the Swampert. I'm going to go ahead and bait with the Hydro Cannons because I'm expecting them to shield. An Earthquake would be devastating for this Lanturn. They go ahead and they shield, and then I'm going to go for a Sledge Wave, and we take their second shield. Now I go ahead and no shield here because I'm thinking that I might be able to reach another move on my Swampert. However, my opponent goes ahead and swaps into their Serperior. This is actually good for me. I'm going to bring in Salazzle here, no shield the Aerial Ace, and then take it out, and I am going to be able to reach a Poison Fang against the Lanturn. It does so much damage to this Lanturn, and we manage to get 2 Incinerates off on the Lanturn as well, putting it in the red. I bring back in Swampert, we take the energy on our Swampert, and then my opponent has a Talonflame in the back left with no shields, and we have 1 shield and an energy advantage. We are easily going to be able to take this win. I should say that sometimes if I see the Lanturn on the lead, I might choose to let my Swampert go because I know that Salazzle with shields up can also take care of the Lanturn pretty well. Moving on to the next match, I posted this match everywhere. I posted it as a YouTube short, I posted it on Twitter. I just really liked how Salazzle played in this game, and you guys are gonna see. We got hard countered on the lead with Swampert into their Serperior, and then I swap in Talonflame, and my opponent brings in a Lanturn. This is good. We draw out the Lanturn here. I'm okay with this. Now I'm gonna bring in my Swampert against the Lanturn, and I'm actually not gonna shield anything. Gonna farm up as much as I can before throwing a Hydro Cannon, and we manage to take him out with the Hydro Cannon, and then I immediately bring in Salazzle so that the Serperior is not able to farm us down. Now my opponent is going to bring in a Talonflame, but here's the thing. Salazzle outpaces Talonflame to these Poison Fangs and is going to be debuffing the Talonflame as well. So the Incinerates are hurting. Incinerate is resisted, and we are able to incinerate the Talonflame down completely with the Salazzle, having 2 Poison Fangs loaded up for the Serperior. Gonna be able to take out both of their final shields with the 2 Poison Fangs, and then I'm gonna be able to reach a 3rd Poison Fang, taking out the Serperior. And this is exactly why you do not top left when you see the first 2 Pokemon. Even if you're hard countered, sometimes there might be a win condition for you. And also this is why I save both shields for my Salazzle, because sometimes Salazzle can just sweep like that. But anyways, on to the next game. We are going to be seeing a Skarmory lead. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chip it a little bit with a Hydro Cannon with Swampert, and then I'm going to swap into one of my fire types at the back. I did go ahead and catch a Sky Attack on my Talonflame, and then my opponent swaps in Talonflame. This isn't what I was expecting to draw out. It looks like they are going to be ABA weak to Lanturn and ABA weak to any anti-flyer, actually. But yeah, we draw out a Talonflame, and then I can bring back in my Swampert, and they go ahead and they shield their Talonflame, which is telling me they might be weak to Swampert. So I go ahead and I invest a shield as well. And this next Hydro Cannon does take out their Talonflame. They bring back in Skarmory. I go for that Hydro Cannon, and let's see what they have in the back. They bring in Whiscash. Okay, where was this when I brought in the Talonflame? This is what I was trying to draw out. But for some reason, they don't swap the Whiscash. They swap Talonflame into Talonflame. I could have won this if I had drawn out this Whiscash with my Talonflame. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do anything with this Salazzle against this Whiscash, so GG's to my opponent. On to the next game, we are going to be seeing a Swampert lead. This is where I need to see the Swampert so that I could try to take it out with my own Swampert. I'm going to go immediately for the Hydro Cannon. They could have caught, but I'm still going to go immediately, and I'm just hoping that I win CMP tie against it. I go ahead and no shield because they didn't shield their own Swampert, and I actually do win CMP, so I get the second Hydro Cannon off, and then I'm immediately going to swap into one of my fire types when my opponent brings in whatever they have in the back. They bring in a Sableye, and I let the Foul Play go because, like I said, usually I like to save both my shields for my Salazzle, and that usually works out for me. And because they didn't swap out of Sableye, that's telling me that whatever my opponent has in the back, I can probably handle with Salazzle. And it turns out that they have a Skarmory in the back. This is basically game over for my opponent because I still have 2 shields for the Salazzle. These Steel Wings are still doing a lot of damage to this Pokemon. Again, very squishy Pokemon, but we are able to completely incinerate them down. And GG's to our opponent, we take that win. On to the next game, we are going to see a Forretress on the lead. My opponent definitely has an answer to fire types in the back, so I am definitely going to draw it out with my Talonflame. We draw out a Whiscash, that's fine. I can go for these flies, and a Scald actually isn't going to be enough to KO Talonflame. It puts us in farm down range, however, and that's unfortunate, but I was still able to take one shield from my opponent and land one of the flies, which put the Whiscash in the red. I can now bring in Swampert, no shield this Mud Bomb, and then go for a Hydro Cannon against the Whiscash. Thankfully, they let it go, and I was actually expecting my opponent to be running double water in the back. I was hoping it wasn't another Mudboy, but they are running Medicham in the back, which means that I can go ahead and shield my Salazzle. The counters aren't going to be doing too much to Salazzle because they are resisted because of that poison typing. I can debuff the Medicham, completely incinerate it down, and then look at how much these incinerates are going to do to this Forretress. 2 incinerates are enough to take the Forretress out. GG's to my opponent, but they are running a team that is ABA weak to Talonflame, so I highly recommend changing that team, changing the backline so that you have more coverage for fire types opponent. Moving on to the next game, we are going to be seeing a Dubwool on the lead. Now I was farming up, and then my opponent decided actually to swap out. They swap into Venusaur. I'm gonna bring in Talonflame, and I do shield the Sludge Bomb because I want to keep my Talonflame healthy, and I have a lot of energy that I can throw against this Dubwool. I'm going to go for a Flame Charge first, and then I go for another Flame Charge, fully expecting my opponent to give me my shield back. We are able to get a shield out of our opponent. They have Wild Charge, however, and they are able to take our Talonflame out. Unfortunate, maybe if it was payback, I would have survived, but that's okay because I can bring in Swampert, go for a Hydro Cannon immediately before they reach a Body Slam. We're able to take out the Dubwool, and then my opponent brings in Gligar. I'm going to go ahead and shield my Swampert because a Hydro Cannon should put it in a range where one more Incinerate from our Salazzle will be able to take the Gligar out. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the final game of the video, we are going to be seeing a very nice lead of Talonflame into our Swampert, and my opponent is staying in. So I'm going to go straight for these Hydro Cannons, fully expecting my opponent to shield. Maybe they think if they land a fly, they can win this or flip this, but I believe Shadow Swampert wins in all shielding scenarios against Talonflame, so there is really no point for the opponent to be investing both shields into Talonflame, I'm still going to be able to reach that third Hydro Cannon and take out their Talonflame here, and then I'm immediately going to swap into my own Talonflame because I had a feeling my opponent still had something in the back that I needed to draw out, and I was correct. They had a Lanturn, so it's a good thing that I saved that Swampert. And also, my opponent goes ahead and only does 10 sparks, and then they throw a Thunderbolt, which means they didn't farm up a lot. I am able to come in, do 4 Mud Shots and CMP tie on the Hydro Cannon, put the Lanturn in the red and into a spot where 2 Incinerates would take that Lanturn out. My opponent goes ahead and catches a Poison Fang on their Shiftry, which is really good for us. That means that the Shiftry was not able to reach a Foul Play. A Foul Play might have been able to take out my Salazzle because the Salazzle is very squishy. So I won that because my opponent made a mistake there. The mistake was not getting more energy from the Talonflame matchup. They could have really taken advantage of that matchup, left with a Surf, and immediately taken out the Swampert. Then they wouldn't have taken the Hydro Cannon from Swampert, and they would have had energy for our Salazzle. So we're ending it off with a nice 4-1, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That brings us to the end of our video. If you guys like my content, please consider subscribing. Maybe leave a like, it helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!